buying and selling lumber, OSB, plywood, etc. Nick, how are we doing with people coming in so far? They're starting to roll in, Matt. How's everything down there about you today?
Lovely. It's hotter than a witch.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's humid here. It's like 75 degrees, but it's swimming outside, right?
It's had a lot of rain. We've been covered up in rain lately.
Yeah, we haven't had the rain. We've just had humidity, man. We got, and I could tell because my dehumidifier in the basement's pumping overtime.
You got to go dump it every 15 minutes.
In a 100-year-old house, yeah. So it's just, I think I'm sucking more. Well, I think I'm sucking more of the air in from the outside through the holes in the walls than I am actually running the thing. All right, well let's start. How are we looking over there and people coming in, Nick? 15 so far and counting. So welcome to the MX channel. If you want to say hello to us, tell us where you're from. Throw it over in the bleep blooper in the right-hand corner of the screen here, and say, give us the name of the city, country, town. We've had people from France, all over the place. Nick from Chicago. How are you? Adam.
Table.
Adam, Sherwood Lumber. Welcome, Adam. How are you? And Chris from Sweden. Chris, how's the weather in Sweden over there, Chris? Judy from Boise. Hey, Judy. Great to have you on.
I think it's pretty remarkable that the technology is like we always have somebody from France or Sweden or there's always several people internationally from that tune in. I just think it's pretty remarkable. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, it is really cool, right? I mean, it kind of shows this is the timber industry, the lumber industry is a worldwide industry, and it we even have people that ping me that watch this, venture capitalists, consultants that watch it just because they want to know what the price of lumber is doing, right? Because it's a big indicator to what goes on in economies globally, locally, regionally, everywhere, right?
I'd like to know from Krister what he specifically is looking for when he tunes in.
Yeah, Krister, what you're from Hong Kong? What I know you've said. I think you do some of the European stuff also, but is that where your office is over there? Buddy from Lincoln, Nebraska, Millard Lumber. Buddy, we need to buy some more 104 and 5/8 Doug fir, man. We've got him on the platform, really decent price today. Brian from Green Bay. Brian, I was just through Green Bay last weekend, and I ate in where St. Norbert's College is, a little spot in the wall there. Well, cool. There's a bunch of people rolling in here. Todd from Ohio. Chad from Omaha. Very cool. Hey, from Nashville. Love Nashville. Good barbecue down there. Hey, is Nashville dry rub or matter? Is that wet barbecue down there? I can't remember.
All right. In North Carolina, we've got two. We've got barbecue based and vinegar based.
Right on. Hudson Valley, New York. Mark Whitney. Hey, Mark. Glad to have you on. And remember, make sure you ask Matt and I any questions and contribute any information during this conversation, because we only get better when everybody kicks the information in. Okay, again, Jory, welcome back here. Hey, Jory, head of our social media. She's in the house. Scott Field, both trying. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, right on, Scott. Cool. Jeff, what's going on, man? Cape Cod. Dan Jones from North Carolina. All right, well, let's start off, Matt. Update on your report, the new format of it. How do people get to it now? And you said that people you're going to basically push different cells and so forth to them, or explain to that. I was reading a little bit on your email this morning about the difference.
Well, what we're trying to do is go digital, and I guess that's I'm not sure what the advantage or disadvantage is, but it makes it a whole lot quicker to send it out, and it enables us to be able to offer back issues for you to be able to see when you go and look, and just to log in to look at the current issue. You can see some of the back issues. Actually, we got everything loaded from the first of the year to the current. So it's kind of cool because you can look back when one guy told me, he said, he could look back and see what I said in January, and then look at what I said in March and what I said in May, and it kind of all links together. So it kind of gives credibility. It helps you act on the future FTPs and forecasts when you have confidence about what's happened in the past.
Yeah, no doubt, Matt. And that's one of the reasons Materials Exchange is really pushing the digital thing, because we think people should have real-time pricing at their fingertips instead of looking at something that was, a survey from a week or two ago, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the market update. I mean, what I saw since last week, for 3 weeks, we've been having people telling everybody about these great buying opportunities. And I think I mentioned this to Greg yesterday. I think this business should be like, if you're on CNBC, where people that are giving you information, you should ask them, first of all, one, are they long? If know what bucket they're fitting in, salesperson, analyst, trader, why are they telling you that information? And if they are telling you that information, track that information back to the source, because there's so much more availability to do that now. And ask them both sides of the coin. Why should you buy? Why shouldn't you buy? Make them give you both sides of it, right? So we went through a market just now where I would say in the last week, if you're at a baseball game, it's late in the innings, but people have kind of thrown in the towel on some stuff. Some things have tried to come back, but from what I'm seeing is sellers are trying to get their inventory average down. They're working through high-priced inventory. So we'll bring up this 2x4, the composite here, Matt, and maybe we'll lead into that and talk about it. What's your feeling on the 2x4 number 2 composite? And with that said, this is the composite when you do it of 2x4 at all different species, correct?
Right. Green fir, dry fir, Western SPF, and Eastern Southern Yellow Pine. It's just equally distributed among them all. And when you look at the FTP there, just what you see is there that week number 31 that something did happen. The market tried to bottom. It got a little bounce, but there's just so much. What we're realizing now is there's so much inventory that was pre-bought for jobs that were pre-sold that the market just got overwhelmed. It overwhelmed itself with supply. And the thing that's interesting about that is it clearly tells us that at 1.7 million homes, the lumber market can sustain that kind of housing volume, but nothing else can. OSB cannot, EWP cannot, sinks can't, refrigerators, windows, lumber is probably the only thing in the whole housing package, or the whole house completed, that there's enough of to build 1.7 million. And we showed that by buying enough lumber and storing enough lumber to cover that 1.7 million that we started with in the beginning of the year. But we're really coming back to the realization that 1.3, 1.4 is still all we can complete. So we just got a real unequal distribution of where the lumber got. I refer to that as inventory shift, and the inventory shifted from the producer to the consumer, and it shifted so much that the consumers got overwhelmed with so much lumber, and the mills were able to catch up. And the thing that made that happen, Ash, was the builders told us back in March, I guess maybe May, that they had order files out they were 12 months out, and they couldn't project land or labor or times for finish or the products or anything else. So the builders made a decision to reel in that order file. And we said this back in May, that when that started to happen, the media was going to jump on it as though there was something wrong with housing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with housing. Everybody's still got plenty to do. There's lots of projects in the wings, just waiting for those things like windows and EWP to become available. There's just hundreds and hundreds of projects that I know of that they're just waiting for the suppliers to say, yes, now I can supply everything. But until the builder can get everything and be guaranteed they're going to get it all and work the job and have it unstopped, they're not going to buy it. So they're just sitting there, kind of twiddling their thumbs, waiting on these other products to come and help finish it up.
That's true, Matt. You kind of got me thinking about something when you said that. So I'm going to jump ahead to something I was going to ask toward the end of this. I had a big digital magazine call the other day and asked a question about, will consumers keep asking, are they going to see, or builders, are they going to see any relief on their total home prices because of this? And my thought is, I could tell you from a local level, I went and looked at a house the other day with my wife that was in terrible shape. It was a borderline teardown. and was on the market for, this is an existing home that just went up. It got sold without a contingency or anything, which basically means they sold this. Nobody put an inspector through and they're buying it like that. There's no open houses on a lot of houses now. They get sold on multiple bids. That's still kind of happening from what I see. New homes, the new home builders or the large builders are, they know if they put a house on the market 6 months from now, if they put it out, it's going to get sold, right? So they're trying to concentrate on getting the homes under roof and built what they have right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they left so much on the table last year. When you start selling things at 12 months out, you have no idea what it's going to cost you to build a thing, and it's just kind of senseless. You can't blame them. It's not really. I think the builder just got over infatuated with the ability to sell. They didn't do it on purpose. They just got overwhelmed with people willing to buy, and they say, well, okay, I'm going to be 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out. They finally just got to say, no, you can't have it. And all that's doing is creating a pent-up demand for that. We never did hit price rejection for housing. Never did. We never did hit price rejection for lumber. It stopped because the builders started reeling in order files. That's all that's happened. So we really don't know what the top end is.
Yeah, so let's go over to the southern pine. That has probably, I should say, firmed up a little bit better than most species, so to speak. Although there are still some decent. I think the tree. Well, this is your bailiwick where you really excel in, Matt. Is that this species? Tell us a little bit. That kind of came off the bottom and is, although there's still some deals out there, is still moving up a little bit.
Well, if you look at the prices, just the colors of them, the only thing that's really gotten active has been 2x4s, and that's in the graph shows southern pine as firming, but really it's only 2x4s firming. You can still buy everything, almost everything else at under index prices almost all the time, and there's plenty of wood around. There's no shortage, but the wood's starting to really. I sent an email out beginning of the week and asked my members to show me pictures of their inventory, and it was unbelievable. It was just everybody had so much lumber; it was stacked to the gills, and anybody that had space, I said what I was looking for was space. Like, is there a row that's empty, a shelf that's empty, or something? And everybody that said they had anything with an empty space, there was something ordered to fill it. So there's just a lot of wood in the system. But
I'm noticing an interesting phenomena on materials exchange, Matt. Like, so I've had conversations with multiple people now. These are retail yards, trust facilities. They're like, hey, they're selling on our platform cheaper than some of the distributors now. And they're following, and the next day I see some of the distributors come down, but the retailers are leading them on selling prices to other retailers. Does that make sense? I mean,
it's because, and I think when that happens, it's because the retailer has less inventory, and he's turned his expensive inventory already, where the wholesale distributor has not. Yeah. So the wholesale distributor wants to average down. The guy was telling me the other day, he said, I don't know how to do the average my new costs with my old costs. I sell off my old costs. I said, it doesn't matter. You can only get what you can get for it, and what you've got in it is what you've got in it.
So I had a conversation with a buddy of mine that was selling on here, a retailer. Just so everybody knows, this is retailers that are normal buyers are selling now. And he said to me, we had a conversation. He repeated to me yesterday. I'm like, hey, there's a bid up here if you're interested. He goes, yeah. He goes, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, I can't tell you what to do. That's your inventory. But he goes, I guess I'll listen to kind of what you said on this. You can't buy your way out of a problem in some of these. I've done that in my life, bought cars from a mill, 10 cars. The next day I go back thinking they're off the market and they have 15 more, right, at a lower price.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, I've noticed that. That's a trend that I've noticed. These retailers, they're smarter. Now they have access where they can sell back into it, are selling, right? Which we like on the platform, but it's also just one of the observations that I had. Let's just check out the Canadian SPF chart. The one thing I haven't heard much of lately, Matt, and I could be wrong, is fires. The fire situation, I know the Pacific Northwest is potentially getting a little better, and I don't know about Canada though. I have no idea.
In Canada, it was only a shipment problem. It wasn't a production problem because the fires were all south of the mills. So the only problems were getting the cars through the fire areas, and anything coming straight south was a problem, but anything that was going east could get around it. So they really just had a shipment issue there for a little bit. And you can tell on the rail shipment page, you can see the big drop in shipments a couple of weeks ago. That was almost 500 cars less, and that's just a function of where they just couldn't get through. But it doesn't appear as though that the mills that were off the market for shutdowns because of fires have come back online. So that production's coming at us, and the ones that are those guys still just haven't filled up their yards yet with lumber, so they're still running wide open. But there's a bottleneck. The whole thing's you've got your wholesale distributors, your retailers, your truss manufacturers, and probably everybody but the wood preservers and the producers, all with growing inventories. And there's a bottleneck at the builders just through EWP and windows. Really, you could just squeeze it down to EWP and windows. If they could get those things taken care of, they could get these houses finished, inspected, and get them closed.
Yeah, man, I was on your call that you let me. You gave me. I'm grateful to sit in on some of your. What do you call that when you have your little the group that you talk to every Thursday?
LLG Lumber PhD class.
Yeah, man, I got to tell you, I don't know who you let into that class, but like the stuff I picked up in there is stuff you do not hear anywhere else, which was pretty great. So that's a plug to that. If you want to, is that how do you get into that class, Matt?
It's available to members only, and it's just it's a 12-week session, and it's interesting. Today's going to be a remarkable discovery that I found. Something I found out last week, that it was reasons why I had a period where at week number 9, the class just fell in half. I just couldn't figure out what happened.
Oh yeah,
it's 3 classes, and half of them didn't show up, and the problem was I was putting them on the spot, and they weren't ready to be put on the spot. It was fear of embarrassment. So I got another whole section on fear of embarrassment and what the cost of embarrassment or fear of embarrassment cost you in the lumber business.
You should put those fake black blindfolds over their eyes and change their voice like they are in the witness protection program.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that would. But hey, if any time that you let me come on that call, I would love to, because I learn more from that call than I do talking to a lot of people. And yeah, it's interesting listening to the one guy said, hey, look, at my lumber package may be going down, but if EWP is $8 a foot now, the total, and cabinets and windows and all that are going up, then the total package isn't going to go down to people like they think it's going to, right?
Yeah, but still, what I'm hearing from the builders is lumber prices are down enough already that they're able to put some money back into the margin side. It isn't enough, so they're really doing better, and that's just with the first month of lower prices. And they got new lumber locks coming up here in another 10 days. And so their September lumber locks are going to be lower than they've been probably in a year. So they're going to be in really, really good shape for their framing.
So my question, are these big sellers that went from 90 days to 30 days going to go back to 90-day pricing now?
I think you're going to see some more of that. The people you're not going to be so protective of being afraid to get caught with 90-day lumber locks. And
yeah.
You see if the builders take them up on it. The builders may want to just let it sit and let it go, stay at 30 days and stay at the market with it. But it's still, I think there's still some downside in the market available. But when you think about, you look at where numbers are today, I think we're within $100, $150 of the bottom and a lot of items compared to $1,500 2 months ago. It's just the percentage of downside is just so much less now.
So one interesting thing I heard from a different user the other day, he was saying in the last 2 weeks, it was the first time in the last 6 months that they actually had built contractors coming in saying, hey, you got to do something on your pricing because I went somewhere else and got better pricing. So it's starting to work through the system, if that makes sense, right?
And these guys are feeling really sick about that too, because they've got lumber that they bought for that specific builder for that specific job, and now he's making them come down on the price because somebody's got it for less. And
yeah. But he hadn't heard that. That was an indicator to me. What I read into that is, okay, some other yard somewhere else or provider has averaged their price down fast enough and taken it now that they've got it, or they're just doing something cheap to get some more business. Whatever it is, that's what I noticed.
I think the first thing is what it is. I think they weren't caught with so much inventory at the top, and they were ready for the market to sell off before it sold off. So they were probably very thin at a time when they felt very uncomfortable being very thin, which is at $1,700, and business was just booming. And they just said, no, I'm not gonna take it. I'm gonna get my inventory down to 4 weeks instead of 8 weeks. And they just were able to spin it out quickly and replace it and get that average cost down less. I think that's what's happening.
All right, my favorite chart. Let's look at OSB, because I go to a bunch of stores every week and look at OSB. And we had a user today tell us that they've been going to one of the big boxes and buying units at $420 a thousand, whereas a week or two ago at some of these same stores, they were $800 a thousand. So OSB at some of these big retail levels just went like this in the last 2 weeks, right? It held. And now it's made its adjustment all the way to the end pretty quickly. So it holds a long time, but when it adjusts really quick, right, Matt? I mean, that's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
That's what we talked about before. When lumber was falling and OSB was going sideways, they say it's just a matter of time. It's gonna catch up and get in line with lumber. Another thing that's interesting too is the relationship between 7/16 and 3/4 underlayment. That's a way too big a spread for the underlayment. It ought to be more like a $200 spread, not a $500 spread. So I think we can see underlayment take an additional hard tumble.
No, it's really easy, and I would like to start scraping it and tracking it. I go to these big home center websites all over the country, and I pull up their zip code, and I go to 7/16 OSB or half inch. Take their total dollar amount divided by 0.032 and figure out what it is per thousand, and you really get a good indicator of what's going on around the different areas, right? And it's easy. They give that information to everybody for nothing. Think about that. So you could track 50 zip codes all over in the price and watch what it does relative to the index at these big home centers.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's so OSB, interesting. Let's look at the framing package index that you bring up. We saw home sales starts and permits came out last week. I think July. The summer months are always odd for housing prices and housing starts, right? Because I think that's a very high adjustable one. So I never read too much into the monthly one. Year over year, it was still tremendous. Month over month, it was down a bit, but I think we need a little bit more data on that over the next few months to really catch a trend. Now, here's what we're talking about, Matt. Your composite framing package index for here. Let's see here. So area one, and which ones? Nick, could you bring up a picture, a map, show what the different area is, if you don't mind, if you can. Let's just look at what area one is and talk about that.
It's basically the West Coast, and then a little pocket in the Dallas-Fort Worth coastal area down that way in Texas, and then in the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's where the highest land values are.
Okay, so if we now look at the numbers, what do you pull out of that? Just a big drop in the framing package index again?
Yeah, and really, it's a lot of that has to do with the freight to get to the region from the mill, but and labor costs. I mean, the cost of living in those areas is so much higher. Carpenters are making $50 an hour, where they're in Georgia they're making $20 an hour. So it's just look at that map. So for March, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, March, that price. So that price has dropped 50%. They get from May 42 to 15, it's dropped 2/3.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big drop. That's amazing. So area 2,
60% drop in all of them, down to $11 a square foot in area 2 from 34. That's just, again, they're down 2/3, and that's these guys, the builders are just something the builders are going to be able to latch on to and probably encourage people to come back in and start cutting. They're going to have some room to cut some prices on houses when you've got your framing package goes from 68 or 84,000 to 30,000, or 58,000 to 26,000, or 72,000 to 26,000. These guys got $50,000 a home less in just the framing package that they've got to deal with, and I don't know how much of that money goes for, how much of that money they need for other products price increases, but they're going to have some flexibility. So we could see some $20,000 price cuts on homes that were that are still a little bit ways out. On the housing data, for example, we noticed that permits ticked up, which kind of indicates that the builders have they got that order file back where they want it. Now they're willing to go out a little bit further. It's still they're kind of throwing the bait out there a little bit more and try to get some more of it before the prices start to fall. But the decline in the housing starts is I think it's intentional. It's not a function of anything other than builders just saying they didn't want that much order file and they just slowed down. And it's also the time of the season where builders are focusing on completions rather than starts. And that changes again in September when we get a second round of starts for the builders. We're going to see a pickup in demand.
Bring that up real quick in the bottom right of page 2 from the 15th. With your housing starts and permits. Let's take a look at that real quick here.
There you go.
There we go.
Mine, and if you notice that my change column is a 2-month average. It's a 2-month change. It's like there's always the 1 month always has a lot of adjustments. So I compare from 2 months back to see what the change is.
Yeah, no doubt. I know one of the companies I was at, they always looked at a 3-month average because that kind of picked up on a little bit better trend and took some of the seasonality out of it a little bit.
You notice the completions are down like 13%, and that's just a function of those other products other than lumber that are just in the way.
Yeah, well, no doubt. Look like I said, we were on that call with your people a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys said if he would have broke one I-joist, he didn't have another one to replace it. I told you I had that guy in the Midwest shipping stuff 500 miles on floor joists. One thing I wanted to bring up because one of my a good user of ours today said that he's having problems still with truss plates, and I had another person ask me that question, a person that you and I know in Louisiana about, can you get me some more truss plates, right? So that's new to me. You said that it's been in working around for a while. Where are they at on truss plates right now? And everybody that doesn't know what a truss plate is, it is the metal flat piece of metal basically that when you're putting a truss together, whether it's on the end of the truss or a web, it compresses into that to those joints to hold that fiber together when that truss is being built. They roll it over there, and
every place there's a joint. Every place there's an intersection here, so they have them on. They put them on both sides of the truss too. So
if anybody on this chat can tell us if they're having any problems with truss plates at all, that's fine. Well, Matt explains what kind of have you heard has happened and where are we at on that?
Well, this started back in, I think it was May, and the truss industry got put on warning that one of the suppliers was going to have going on allocation, and they warned all of their customers if you start selling your supply to somebody else or you start buying from someone else, we're going to cut you off. So it was kind of like you got to go with it, or you're going to lose your software and your hardware together. So you really got the truss guys in a pinch, and especially the floor truss lately has really picked up a lot because of the EWP. There's been a major shift from EWP to floor trusses, and these guys are out like, I mean, even their order files for floor trusses now are out further than when they were at the peak of the pandemic. They're out like, lots of guys are out 12 weeks, 3 months to get your trusses. So when you start to turn dirt on a job site, you got to order your windows, you got to order your trusses, you got to order all kinds of stuff long before you need it, 3-4 months before you need it. And it's is that like Ken said, no, he had any problem with truss plates, just a longer lead time. But
thanks, Kevin just said we have had no issues with truss plates past a longer lead time. That's good feedback there.
That's good.
One thing too, one of your users said this, Matt, yesterday or last week in your call. We were talking about using solid wood. He goes, okay, let's put it this way. It just took somebody 6 months to get a permit to build a house based on the blueprint that they submitted 6 months ago. They do not want to exchange. Yes, going in the future, they can talk about it. But right now, from what I know in certain regions, they don't want to pull out an I-joist, re-engineer it for a solid wood timber, put it back through the spanking machine again to go through and try to see how they get that thing permitted again. So he's like, yeah, okay, if we could do it in a second, we may do that, but it doesn't make any sense to do it and wait 6 months again. Did that make sense, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. You just gotta, it's just, people are already frustrated enough about having to wait 6 months to get the permit. And then you're going to wait another 6 months and then another 6 months to get the house. And after a while, they just go, screw it, I'm getting an apartment.
Oh, this is great. So Scott put ordering lumber, windows, doors, etc. long before starts. 15-week lead times on trusses. Crazy at times. Great. Thanks, Scott. Awesome information. Tom, it's been an issue for us. I'm assuming truss plates due to our growth beyond our allocation. So that's just straight out. The throttle's wide open and all the engines are screaming, right? And
yeah, the thing is that these guys could take more business if they could produce more. If they have labor issues, they got plate issues. Lumber's not an issue. They got the equipment. I mean, I've talked to guys who have put in new lines. They've got the preparation to do it. They just need that bottleneck at the home builder to just open up so they can catch up. But
yeah, and we're finding hit or miss on the platform. Like Mike just came in and we just sold some 2x4, 104 and 5/8 Doug fir 2 and better. And when I saw the price we sold them at, I was like, wow, somebody got a great deal. I would tell you what the deal is, but you got to get on mxlumber.com to see it. But I'll call some people and they're like, yeah, I'll take that. They'll hit the match. Some people are like, oh, I would love to buy that, but I can't yet. What if it comes from two reasons. One, they're working through inventory, or two, they're at a big company that they've been given that mandate from the tower. Don't buy until we say it's okay. Right. So
yeah, even though they know they could average down by 60%, they're still saying, no, I want to see this big lumber that you bought for this specific job gone.
Yeah. And wow, I'm looking at this number, I'm looking at this 104 and 5/8 number just Matt put here, and I'm like, or Mike put down here. I'm like, that's what 92 and 5/8 were trading at a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, this is crazy time. All right, well, Matt, we're up against our 30 minutes, so this was great. If you could invite me to that today, I'd love to come to your meeting.
You're checking your mail.
I love it, and I think anybody I got to tell you, I'm not BSing about this because if you know me, I'm not one to BS that much. That's a great event to go to, Matt. I don't even think you realize how good it is. I got a lot of information out of that. And I think everybody got information out of it. So again, appreciate you spending the time today. Everybody, thank you for coming. Come to mxlumber.com and we'll get you buying and selling lumber on our digital platform and show you the transparency in no time. Or go to Matt's to Layman.com now. It's not, Layman's Guide. Laymansguide.com. There it is down in the bleep blooper in the bottom there. And we'll look forward to
no gimmicks.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks, Matt. Everybody have a great week.
Thank you guys for coming.
All right, thank you.